Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report powered by ENCA.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. Why would the Russian army want around 20 absolute amateur, untrained South Africans who are not just not soldiers, they're not even capable and equipped of being bodyguards? Why would they allegedly pay Duduzile Zuma-Sambudla 34 million rand for around 18 to 20 bodyguards? Why would this happen? And what do we now know since our last show on Friday, where, as you know, Duduzile resigned or was pushed as a member of parliament, out of parliament by the MK party. 4 people were arrested at our Tambo International Airport for allegedly being on the way to join the Russian army. A 5th person, a senior veteran radio presenter from SAFM, was also arrested on a charge of contravening the Foreign Military Assistance Act. And apparently, Jacob Zuma was blue-ticked when he went to Moscow himself to beg the Russian government to get those young South Africans out of that war zone. We're going to cover all of that today and so much more. We're probably also going to have time for a little bit of the Madlanga Commission madness yesterday with the lipstick painting and the wild allegations and bad behavior. The only place you can watch the full show, as always, is on www.enca.com. We have a link in the description. There's also a link to www.3beaniesnetwork.com if you want to go and buy some merchandise. And I have to say, what are those? We'll tell you more about these tomorrow. Follow our WhatsApp channel by searching 3 Beanies Network with Dan Corder. If you did not know, somehow, Duduzile Zuma-Sambudla has been accused of misleading 18 to 20 around about young Southern Africans, and I will talk about Botswanan Gate a little bit later because we got lots of WhatsApps about that. Yes, I know it's Botswana. I had a brain aneurysm during the show on Friday and said Botswanans by accident. I apologize for that. We'll deal with that later. But Duduzile Zuma-Sambudla has been accused of luring around 20 Southern Africans to Russia under false pretenses. We found out just in the last few days that apparently the contracts that they signed were all in Russian. So they didn't even know the contracts that they were signing. They thought they were going for bodyguard training. They thought they were going to get MK party jobs when they came back. They went to Russia. They were forcibly conscripted against their will and sent with virtually no training, not just into the war, onto the front line, into the Donbas region near the city called Donetsk, which has been the site of one of the most intense sites of fighting in the entire war. Drones flying overhead, bombs and artillery and shells and all the rest, active fighting. Terrifying. And these 18 to 20 South Africans have been stuck there ever since. Now, what's happened since last Friday's show? Well, we have found out that Jacob Zuma personally went to Moscow to personally, physically request that the Russian army pull those around 17 South African men out of the front line. And apparently, he requested meetings with Vladimir Putin, the president, and Defense Minister Andrei Belousov. And instead, he didn't get either of them. Instead, he was just led to a junior official, not quite an intern, but let's just say someone who they don't bring out if they have a big gun in town, who told him to submit his request in writing. Then he sent 2 letters after that to Belousov on an MK party letterhead, styling himself as the party's president. He pleaded for their immediate release, argued that they shouldn't have been recruited to fight in the Donbass. They hadn't got enough training, but he's just been ignored, which is extraordinary. So what this shows is that Jacob Zuma has both known about this situation for a long time, and he's recognized how bad it is reputationally for his party, his family, and his daughter. He's known for a long time how bad this would be if it got out into the South African public, and it has. I just read you some of the reporting from Chris Mackay from the Sunday Times on the 1st, which was yesterday morning, 4:30 a.m. They've been working through the night on this bombshell story. And then on Sunday, you would have seen the reports that 4 South Africans were stopped at OR Tambo International Airport. They were arrested allegedly for intending to fly to Russia via the United Arab Emirates and join the military effort. They seemed to know they were going to actually fight. And then a senior SAFM radio presenter, and to all the people who sent me messages, no, when you saw a senior radio presenter, it's not automatically me, but thank you for that. A senior SAFM radio presenter called Nonkululeko Mantula has been arrested. So she's been charged and has a court date and a court appearance. She has been charged with facilitating recruitment to the Russian army of South Africans, and that just is fully illegal under the regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. So a big difference between Mantula and Zuma-Sambudla, Duduzile, is that Mantula has been charged, whereas Duduzile is just under investigation. But we know from interviews with the family members of all of these men, or a number of these men, that they called her Auntie Dudu, and she was fundamentally involved, according to them in their own testimony, in convincing them to go on this now terrible, terrible, tragic mission to go and allegedly get training overseas. Wildly, another one of Jacob Zuma's daughters, the half sister of Duduzile Zuma-Sambudla, has laid criminal charges against her for trafficking these guys. And even more wildly, some of the men and the family members who spoke to, in this case, News 24, blamed another Zuma, a woman called Sipokazi Xuma Zuma, for misleading themselves and their children. So it's an absolutely insane situation. You can see why Jacob flew to Moscow, given his family. This is his family. Like you can't. Like, I know Duduzile is now trying to blame it on a guy called Blessing Koza and a third person. She's filed counter charges, but come on. And as we said on Friday and on the TV show last night, at the point at which Duduzile has been forced out of being a member of parliament, the MK party knows that she's probably going to be guilty, and the ramifications are going to be so bad. And just to spice this up even more, I will remind you of the first person who most infamously seemed to be complicit in trafficking South Africans to Russia under false pretenses, the influencer Cyan Bougie. Her birth name, Honor Zuma. It is absolutely crazy.
So what Ricardo said last night on the TV show in the interview was that this money is not a surprising amount of money because the Russians are burning through their war chest of finances. And he was saying something really interesting to me after the interview, that Russian life is very stratified, right? They have oligarchs, they have intense
hyperwealth.
No. Intense inequality. Very, lots of very poor people and very few rich people.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar. But this is one of the greatest wealth transfers in Russian history because the Russian war chest is being spent on young men to go and fight, and their families are being brought into the middle class. I mean, a lot of these young men are dying, so it's not a universally good thing, but it's a really interesting part of the story.
So just to follow up what you said, so Ricardo was talking about how the Russians have lost over 1 million people in this war, like killed, dead. They have also brought in allies of theirs like North Korea, who've also suffered staggering losses. And so the Russians are running out of men to fight this war. And the Russian army has this very brutal, we don't care about you approach to their soldiers, where they just send them in to die. And they try to overwhelm the opposition, the armed foe, which in this case is Ukraine.
I believe Ricardo referred to it as meat waves.
Meat waves, just sending people over and over again. Doesn't matter if they die. It's basically sending them in to see where they die, to see whether they can send more people in after that to overwhelm that position. If everyone just dies and no one else can get there, they go somewhere else.
The people who facilitated this, the South Africans going, knowing that you were putting someone in such grave danger.
Yeah.
And also, we've seen reports of people joking about it. Allegedly, Duduzile was joking about it on WhatsApp to the guys who were in danger. You have to be pretty sick to do this.
Yeah, also that moment of the guys who are stuck there complaining to someone who said, toughen up, you're not being real men. You're bringing shame on your family by complaining about this. Absolutely insane. But let's talk about the Foreign Military Assistance Act, or it's actually called specifically, let me get this absolutely right, the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act. And again, Ricardo did a great job explaining this last night on the TV show, where, South Africa had a lot of battle-hardened soldiers from the border war that the apartheid government fought against the Angolans, amongst others, during apartheid. And then apartheid ended, and the new South Africa were like, no more border war, we're not fighting with anybody anymore. And so all of a sudden, there were these hyper-experienced, trained in some cases, elite South African fighting soldiers with nothing to do. And then they started hiring themselves out to whoever would pay their bills. And then that caused the South African government in the late 1990s to create the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act, which basically outlaws South Africans from helping foreign militaries at all in any way, whether it be going and signing up, whether providing military equipment, whether it be even providing just advice. Even just consulting and information, it's outlawed under South African law, although the law hasn't been very rigorously tested. And the law is now very relevant because South African government is upset with South Africans going and joining the British Army, going and joining the Israeli Defense Force. And there are questions about whether or not we're going to find out the true shape and nature and effect of this Foreign Military Assistance Regulation Act if the South African government brings it to bear on these South Africans. So this is an absolutely enormous story. It involves South Africans being arrested. It involves shady links between the most powerful family still in South Africa, the Zumas, by a mile. There's no family as powerful as theirs, although I think if you go beyond blood and consider marrying in, the fact that Motsepe and Ramaphosa are now related by marriage might run them close. But if you think about the connections that the Zumas have to massively powerful businesses and arguably crime families around the world, including obviously the Guptas, this is a huge moment. And as we said on Friday, so many Zumas being implicated. Now we know Jacob Zuma thought this was such a danger and such a big deal that he flew to Russia to try and solve this before it broke out in the media. And the fact that Duduzile was forced to resign, or at least we believe forced to resign. She's not the kind of person who does something to weaken her own power by her own hand. The fact that she's being sued by her half-sister and the fact that a Huma Zuma has also been implicated, it's so bad. And as you and I spoke about, I think yesterday, just over a coffee, Duduzile doesn't have the pull to make this deal with the Russian government, with the Russian army. The only person who has this kind of relationship in that family with the Russian army is the patriarch. It's Jacob Zuma. And so, look, he may have gone through his children to do this because, any smart person who's about to break the law, especially a big mafia type, if that's what Zuma is, it uses fronts. They're never in the room at the time. They're never in the room at the time of the conversation. They send someone to do the deal with them, with the other people for them, so that they're never actually implicated and never in danger, never in the room. And this could easily have been this situation.
But in one of the interviews that I believe Mail and Guardian did with the family of one of these men, it is alleged that I'm not going to call him a soldier because he's not even a soldier yet, has now been forced to be a soldier without his consent. He told the story that he made complaints to Huma Zuma, and apparently the response was, we need to ask Jacob about this. So there is some serious arrow pointing towards him. Lucky Montana has also been cut as an MP in the last 24 hours.
Didn't he say that he stepped down?
Okay. Sure. You stepped down.
Yeah.
And what's very convenient is for anyone who is interested in the ending of corruption in this country, I would highly recommend following the SIU on social media.
Yeah, their Twitter account.
They have an unbelievable social media manager, that side. And I really actually want to talk to them. I don't know who they are, but I really want to get them on the show. Can you imagine how cool it would be?
This is actually the second time we're saying, if you're watching right now and you are the SIU social media manager, or no, not that. Come on the show. This is an open invitation to come on the show. Or if you know that person or can reach that person, tell them that we want this person interviewed on the show because they are doing better work than Shamila Batoy right now.
They are doing a phenomenal job. They were outing people for stealing their photos and content without credit. They were doing all these tweets and stuff. It was amazing. But then I don't know if this is about this or this is purely a just a convenience, or this actually did happen this way. But the news about Lucky Montana, who is embroiled in SARS tax issues at the moment.
Such a diplomatic description of what he's involved in. Issues.
To the tune of tens of millions of rands.
Correct.
So he steps down as an MP, and a couple of hours later, the SIU releases a statement saying, just want to let everyone know that just because you quit from something doesn't mean the investigation stops.
Unreal.
And you're just like,
Unreal.
the source.
Yeah, so you probably saw Ekurhuleni city manager. What's her name? Her name is, first name, Imogen Mashazi.
Sorry.
Okay, so she used to be the Ekurhuleni city manager. She accused Isaac Mapiyeye, the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department suspended head, of subjecting his female subordinates to sexual harassment and even rape at Madlanga. And you may have seen the viral clip where somebody on the panel, maybe Baloy?
Commissioner
Selo, said, okay, evidence, please. And her response was, what did you say to me? Her response was, I saw another one of my colleagues coming to this commission and they accused me of having a close relationship with another member of the Ekurhuleni, I think, police department, and you didn't ask them for evidence. And the person said, we're asking you right now if you've got hardcore fact proving evidence of sexual harassment and sexual assault, which is quite different than close relationship. But even if it was the same, we're asking you this right now, absolutely not relatively, do you have evidence? And she said she was upset about the situation. And she was so surly and so rude and so disrespectful. She was sighing, rolling her eyes, zoning out, one-word answers, applying lipstick, saying she didn't want to come back the next day. She said that she was forced to retire from her position as the city manager by the mayor, Dr. I think Makaza, although it might be Jakaza. Not sure which language this is, but it's Xhakaza. I've had troubles with this since moving to Gauteng.
She also was called out by Commissioner Selo for going on her phone whilst addressing these issues.
Unreal.
And
Candy Crush.
Then she said no, she is getting evidence. Sure. And everyone so she's getting advice and evidence on the phone. And everyone's like, you were supposed to do this before. Also, much like seemingly every single person going to ad hoc and Madlanga, they didn't have enough time. Yeah. Apparently no one has enough time now. No one knew it was happening and no one has enough time.
Which is why Senzo Mchunu, suspended currently police minister, is only appearing at Madlanga this afternoon. So this is so wild to me, right? This is the big moment. So Mashazi said that the EMPD chief, Isaac Mapiyeye, sexually harassed, sexually assaulted female officers, including fathering multiple children with them. And Mashazi said that she continually got these reports of sexual misconduct from a group of female officers. And then Madlanga said, so what did you do about it? And she said, I started a program to seek to promote women in uniform. Direct quote from Madlanga. So from 2016 to 2025, you are continuing to receive these reports which tell you there's a systemic problem and you do nothing throughout your tenure as your municipal manager. To which Mashazi said, yes, I take your point, except to create a platform for them. This is why I thought this was too stupid. This is why I nearly did not talk about this on today's show. What an absolute waste of time human being. Like genuinely galling waste of time human being.
The one thing that I do feel is important to say about all of this is that she is important because she is the person who is the superior of Julius Mkhwanazi. And Julius Mkhwanazi, I think we described him before as the sort of like useful
idiot.
Yeah. I was trying to find a different word.
Him dancing at that Christmas party and saying, we will die for you to the manager or whatever.
So he is the guy who is basically the fixer or the corruptible agent.
Blue lights for Kat Matlala, all this.
And he is the one who allegedly gave Kat Matlala the blue lights. Yeah. And then there was some weird thing about, this is what Mashazi reported on, that, Mkhwanazi said that Matlala donated the cars to Ekurhuleni. And that's why they had blue lights on them. But then Kat Matlala used it exclusively. So it's not... anyway.
And Kat also said that he donated those cars to Ekurhuleni, by the way.
That's a very generous thing of him to do. Very generous.
And then one of his side flings using it to go pick up her kid from school.
Jeff Wicks
which she posted on Instagram stories. These people are insane.
Jeff Wicks reported that the same car was used for 2 different women. To drive them to the airport. The reason why...
Kat Matlala, if nothing else, he's efficient with his resources.
Yeah. And very generous. Yeah. But the reason why we need to know about Mashazi is Mashazi then speaks on Julius Mkhwanazi and why he was able to do all of this stuff allegedly without oversight. And I think that her testimony is really important because she sets up where I hope Julius Mkhwanazi will eventually come to the Madlanga Commission and have to then give his account compared to her account, which is already full of a whole bunch of stuff that hasn't been given evidence for.
Sure.
And then if he starts, essentially just spinning these stories, he makes it so much more difficult for other people to twist narratives, because he is like the central knot in a lot of these different people's stories. So this is really important. Even though it's stupid, it is important.
This is why James is on the show. Because sometimes I'm so annoyed with the situation, I'm like, I can't. And he's like, okay, then I will.